Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing this morning? Good, good. How's everybody else? I am fantastic. Thank you, Maria. Thank you for asking. Oh, my goodness. For those that don't know who the heck I am, guess. No, I'm Reverend Michael Everett Davis. I am ordained as this interfaith minister from One Spirit in New York, and I'm serving as the spiritual director here at Unity of Indianapolis through special dispensation with Unity Worldwide Ministries as I take courses and all the things, all the training toward a Unity ordination. Get closer every day. So, I'm going to start off with a story. This is the story of Vice Principal Johnson. Central High School had a bullying problem. There was a group of seniors that would be abusive to the freshmen. So the head principal told Vice Principal Johnson, go to the lunchroom and have a conversation with these kids. Tell them that if they start behaving well, that I will get rid of their permanent record and they'll be able to graduate. If they don't, they can't graduate. So, Vice Principal Johnson did not want to do this. He didn't like those kids. They were mean. He thought they deserved to be expelled. So instead of going to the lunchroom to talk to the kids, he went to the teacher's lounge looking for some support there. It's like, these kids are terrible, right? Ever since they came into high school, they've been mean, they've been bullies. We're constantly writing them up and sending them to the principal's office. They deserve to be expelled, and let's get rid of them. Well, the other teachers didn't really like the way that he was talking. They were really uncomfortable, and the vibes in the room was really bad, and the teacher was like, no, we can't do this. You're really upsetting us. Get out of here. So they threw him out of the teacher's lounge. So he goes and he talks to the head principal, and I was like, I don't want to do this. These kids, they're terrible. I think they should be expelled. Well, the head principal grabs him by the arm and takes him to the lunchroom where he has no choice but to talk to these kids. He's like, I think it's a waste of time, but I will do it anyway. And so he tells these kids, it was like, if you stop bullying, head principal will get rid of your permanent record and you'll be able to graduate. And it was weird. The bullies were like, you know what, you're right, we're sorry. We are so sorry. We won't do it anymore. They did a big announcement in the school. It's like, so sorry, we've been treating you all this way. Please forgive us. We're not going to do it anymore. And the head principal was very pleased. And he ripped up their permanent records and threw them away. Their record was perfectly clean. Vice Principal Johnson was so mad. So mad. These kids should have been expelled. They should not have gotten a free pass. That's how he looked at it. Well, that night, he went to bed, he fell asleep, and he had this weird dream. He was surrounded by the school rule books. He felt comfort. He felt power, being surrounded by those rules. And then suddenly this giant silverfish appeared and started eating up all the books. And he got so mad. He was so angry. Why are you eating up these books? And then he heard the voice of the head principal saying, why are you mad that these books are destroyed? You didn't write them. They're not yours. I wrote the rules. I get to change them if that means that my students get a better opportunity. Vice Principal Johnson woke up a changed man. So does this story sound familiar to any of you? Probably so. Do you recognize some of yourself in Vice Principal Johnson? Maybe. You see, every time that we cling to a judgment, every time we withhold mercy, every time we refuse to forgive, we're like Vice Principal Johnson, or perhaps like Jonah from the story of Jonah. Jonah 1:1. The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai, go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah ran away from the Lord and headed to Tarshish. Now, does the story sound familiar? So, looking at the story of Jonah, looking at it metaphysically, I just wanted to retell the story in a different way. As we're familiar with old biblical stories, let's make it a little modern. But in the story of Jonah, God tells Jonah to go to Nineveh. Metaphysically, from the revealing word, Jonah is that prophetic state of mind which, if used without divine love, fixes man in bondage to belief in law and cause and effect, wherein error sowing cannot be redeemed or forgiven, which means you can't get out of there's right and wrong. It's either this or that, good or bad, and if it's bad, it's going to be punished, not redeemed. And the city of Nineveh represents our outer growth, harmony, and intellectual understanding, which can result in materiality, unless centered in spiritual thought. It also represents the seat of the natural or the animal forces in humans' body consciousness. It's also a symbol of our own shadow places. Perhaps we can relate Nineveh to Christian nationalism. The folks of Nineveh were not willfully wicked, they were simply waiting for spiritual instruction. Jonah's condemnation of them symbolizes the unwise use we sometimes make of discernment. Sometimes we mistake discernment for judgment. Discernment is when we're aligned with the divine, with spirit. Judgment is when we're looking at it from the ego sense. So Jonah runs away. He's fleeing from Nineveh is symbolic of inattention or willful neglect in handling error thought, resisting inner guidance. And Tarshish, or the teacher's lounge, it's the hard, unyielding, argumentative, battering, demolishing tendency that is characteristic of the purely intellectual and reasoning nature in man when unmixed with divine love and the softening influence of spiritual wisdom. It's that battering, demolishing tendency when we're not in line with spirit. We can be like, they are so bad, they're terrible. Or we even turn it in on ourselves. I am so bad, I am so terrible. Why did I do that? We beat ourselves up, or someone else. In Jonah's story, he's trying to escape his task. And he ends up on a boat on his way to Tarshish. And a storm comes in. And the men on the boat realize this is coming from Jonah's God, so God is mad at him. So they throw him overboard. And he is swallowed up by a big fish. Metaphysically, the sea can signify universal mind, that great realm of unexpressed and uninformed thoughts and ideas that contains all potentiality. Or it can be our mind. And the storm and the chaos comes from when we resist spirit, when we resist the divine. And metaphysically, fish represent ideas swimming through the waters of the mind. Jonah got swallowed up by his rigid thought that the people of Nineveh were so bad and they were not deserving or worthy of God's mercy. In the story, Nineveh repents. The bullies repent. They change. Jonah is angry and that God forgives them. That's our ego's resistance to mercy. So what's your big idea? We're going to take a short meditation. So I invite you to sit in your chair as comfortably as you can, feet on the floor. Close your eyes or lower your gaze. Take a deep breath and let that out. We're going to look within. Take another deep breath in and let that out. And one more deep breath in and let that out. I invite you to bring to mind something that you've been guided to do. An idea, a calling, whisper that keeps coming back. What is that? What is that thing that you've been asked to do? What big idea is eating you? What thought are you holding on to that is separating and disconnecting you from your own divinity? That's keeping you from surrendering to your inner guidance? Is it fear? Doubt? Imposter syndrome? Feeling unworthy? What is it that's holding you back from that calling? Now imagine, if you will, there's a big fish swimming by, and it swallows up that thought of fear, of lack, or whatever error thought you are holding on to. Watch it disappear completely. Feel it gone. God's mercy has freed you from what binds you. Breathe in God's mercy. Breathe out gratitude. And quietly say to yourself in your mind, I am here. God is here. All is well. You can come back to the room, wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, gently open your eyes. Look around at the faces of God in the room. What's the big idea? I've been taking a Bible overview class here these past few weeks. And recently we were looking at the prophets. The prophet that I was assigned to was Micah. Well, actually, I wasn't assigned to it. I picked it. We were supposed to choose, and it's like, oh, my name's Michael. I'll pick Micah. That's the only reason. I had no specific connection to any of them. At the time, I really didn't understand who the prophets were. I know there was a lot of damnation from God coming in from them. And in the book of Micah, 3rd chapter, Micah goes to the leaders of Israel, and he calls them out for their lack of social justice. It was like, you are hurting the marginalized people. These are the people you're supposed to be protecting. And he uses this awful graphic imagery of the leaders skinning the poor and chopping them up and eating them with like cannibalism for their own purpose, for their own enjoyment. Kind of sounds familiar, right? Right? What's going on? It was quite an eye-opening experience for me to see how the prophets were all calling for social justice. How brave they were in their time to call out leadership in these countries and say, look, you're going against what God wants, and you need to change. Even in the story of Jonah is to go to Nineveh and prophesy to the people to change their ways. And that evening when we were talking about the prophets, we all were assigned different prophets, and we talked about all of them, and one after another, the prophets were warning the people or the leaders that they needed to stop their evil doings or face the wrath of God. I see each of these stories as it is our ego that is being prophesied to. It's when we disconnect or are disconnected from the divine that we are being led by ego, by materiality, by worldly ideas. And we're being reminded to get into alignment with the divine. And when we are in alignment with the divine, we've repented. We have gone from our old ways to our new ways, and there is no punishment. What's the big idea? Can we find compassion for those that we perceive as evil? The people of Nineveh? Extremists? So here's my challenge. It's my personal challenge. I invite you to join in, is to see the divine in everything and in everyone. That's being in line with God. In these current times of division and discourse, I find it difficult. Perhaps you do too. I know we've talked about this a lot. To find it difficult to see the divine in every person or in every situation. Unity principle number 3 teaches us that our thoughts create our experiences. And that reminds me of a phrase by Dr. Wayne Dyer: change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. So how do we change our thoughts of where is God in this to there is God in this? Unity principle number 1 states there's one presence, one power, God the good. God is everywhere. God is in all things. To keep it simple, there is no spot where God is not. But sometimes we forget, especially when we perceive that what is going on in the world is bad or that people are bad. Jonah didn't want to go to Nineveh. And we could say in these moments where I don't want to do that. That's bad. I can't do that. I can say, look for God in there. But really, we don't have to look. We just need to remember. There's no spot where God is not. God is there. There's only one presence and one power, God, the good. So, when we pause, take a breath and pause, and look at life and people through a spiritual lens, we start to see the divine in the everyday, in the rain, in the sun, washing clothes, washing dishes, a friend's smile, and of course, our challenges, those roadblocks, those hurdles that we face in life. God is there. And those who challenge us, God is there. This is how we grow. Sometimes we may not see immediately what that good is or what that good can be, but that thing that we perceive as bad can actually be shining light on a shadow that needs to be healed. So today I invite you to practice seeing the divine in everything. When we remind our hearts and look for the divine instead of looking for the problem, we begin to realize nothing was missing. When we are in alignment with the divine, we don't have to chase after it. We don't have to look for it because it is here always has been. Just like Dorothy from Kansas, it was there in her own backyard the whole time. It's always here. It's waiting for us to see it. Take a breath. Say to yourself, I'm here. God is here. All is well.